All right.
So welcome to our video on the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. I'm Kevin.
I'm Kristen.
And this is our second try at this. Because the cameras in the...
Counseling center don't work at all.
No, so we're doing this off of her phone. So the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale is a document that was put together by Columbia University along with leading experts, basically the Beck's group, to provide an evidence-based, reliable, 99% reliable scale. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the United States. Police officers, first responders, are killing themselves, and there wasn't a reliable document to assess this. So this scale was created to avoid false and misleading results. So it's low burden, which means it's a low administration time, and anyone can administer it. Teachers' aides, coaches, bus drivers,
Counselors.
Nurses.
Yeah.
And so it assesses two things. The first two questions assess suicide ideation. If it's a yes or no, you automatically, if it's a no, there is no ideation, you still want to assess behavior. And I'll be the client that presents that scenario. If the ideation is there, then you go on to questions 3, 4, 5, which assesses intent.
Which I'll be the client in that scenario.
And then you always assess behavior. And we'll explain that why in a minute. But here's just a couple more key points about this training. It's a comprehensive measure that includes the most necessary suicide characteristics, the most essential evidence-based items needed in the assessment. It is simply a 1 to 5 rating for suicide ideation, from a wish to die to an active thought of killing oneself with plan and intent. It can be done in 2 questions. Have you wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up? Or have you actually had any thoughts of killing yourself? Like I said before, if the answer is no on both, then there are more questions on the ideation. So if there's no more questions on ideation, you move to the behavior.
And the intent.
There are 4 behaviors assessed, few questions required. So if the person covers that there is suicide attempts in the first questions you ask them, you don't have to ask every single question. But what's really important is to make sure that you stick to the script. I've seen this assessment given to where the therapist asked the question about suicide ideation, and then she followed up with, you weren't thinking about doing it today, were you? And left him really on the defensive. And of course he said no, but we don't really know if that client had thoughts of killing themselves today, because the question was off script and was a defensive question.
Definitely.
So it's a semi-structured interview, a flexible format. Questions are provided as helpful tools. And like I said, it's not required to answer all the questions if they give you enough information to ask all the questions. Most important is to gather enough clinical information to determine whether to call something suicidal or not. And we have a fun game show for you at the end to practice that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with our first assessment. And I will be the client. Kristen.
And I'll be the counselor.
All right.
Hi, Kevin. So what brings you in today?
Well, I'm in the Marine Corps, and I'm just really depressed right now. I lost my rank. I was late to some roll calls. I'm just really bummed out. My parents are getting a divorce, and I don't know. Just life really sucks right now. I don't know. I'm just really depressed.
Okay. So you mentioned depressed. If it's okay with you, we're going to transition into an assessment right now. Okay. So it'll be a couple of questions, short questions. So Kevin, have you wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Have you actually had any thoughts of killing yourself?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So that leads me to the final question.
Okay.
Have you done anything or started to do anything or prepared to do anything to end your life?
This is confidential, right?
With the exception of abuse, suicidality, and homicidality.
Well, a couple months ago, I was at the rifle range. We were qualifying, and there were these rounds that were not shot off. Those were bullets in the rifle, and usually they account for all of these, but I took them and put them in my pocket to take back with me, because what happens when you're done shooting is they lock all the rifles up. But sometimes you can take them back to your barracks to clean them, and of course there's never any rounds, but yeah, so I took a couple rounds.
What thoughts were going through your head when you did that?
Well, this is right when the divorce happened, and I don't know. I was really upset with my mom. I would never kill her, but just having the option there.
The option for
just having an option, whether if things got really bad, that I could take action to hurt myself.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty with me, Kevin. Would you mind waiting here while I go get my supervisor?
Why?
Just to further assess if we can provide you some additional help.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So that was an assessment based on no ideation at the present time. But when Kristen assessed the behavior part, she determined that there might have been something there.
Yeah, which is why I asked Kevin to remain here while I got my supervisor to see if I could better aid in helping him.
You know, before, if you don't ask the behavior question part of this assessment, because you said, do you have any intent to kill yourself? My answer was no, although I paused a lot because I really want to put some thought into it. Some nonverbals right there.
Yes.
Might have been a little suspicious. Why is he taking so long, right? If I didn't have the intent to kill myself, then why did I take so long?
Yeah, there was hesitation, definitely.
There was. And so this is actually a semi-true story. I never did take the rounds, but I thought about taking rounds when I was in the Marine Corps, when that happened to me. So by asking the behavior part, it gave her some more insight. Before, people would just ask the ideation part without the behavior part, and they didn't ask about the noose in the closet that was, or
it didn't give the full picture.
Right.
And
if there was if there was going to be a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
Right.
And therefore didn't provide the help that people needed and high rates of suicide.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to trade off, and I'm going to be the counselor.
And I'm going to be the client.
Hi, Kristen. It's great to see you. What brought you in today?
So, I'm currently in a situation that I don't really like. I'm going to community college, living with my parents.
You know what? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
In a relationship that I'm not really happy on. Everything in my life right now is very food-centric and food-focused, and I don't want to be here anymore.
So it sounds like you don't want to be here. Can you explain that a little more?
Don't want to be in the current situation that I'm in. Don't want to feel like how I'm feeling. Don't want to be on the earth anymore.
So I'd like to ask you a couple more questions. Just going to take a couple questions. So
Okay.
the first one is, have you wished that you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up?
I've definitely had thoughts about going to sleep and never waking up, like dying in my sleep.
Okay. So you've actually had thoughts of killing yourself?
Yeah. I'd say I have.
Okay. Have you been thinking about how you might kill yourself?
Well, so lots of my family has health related issues with weight. I've had grandfathers have cardiac arrest and pass away, and my father has diabetes, and lots of poor health decisions based on how they're eating. So I kind of thought that, I could eat myself to death.
So, how would you do that? How would you eat yourself to death?
Just eating bad foods, like ones that clog your arteries, eating, like binging, eating too much of those foods, just not listening to my body when it's telling it to stop eating and just continue eating. So overeating, I guess, frequently.
Okay. Have you started this? Are you starting to act on them?
I mean, I've stopped exercising pretty much, which I would consider part of it, except maybe to walk and go get food. I haven't, I guess I've been cutting out vegetables and fruits and kind of slowly making my diet worse.
Okay. And have you started to work out the details of how to carry out this plan?
I mean, just eating whatever I can, I guess. I kind of live in an area where it's easy access to food, the Bay Area. So just eating whenever I feel like it and continuing to eat poorly with my family and partner on top of that. So yeah, I'd say I definitely have ideas, and I don't know. I've thought about it, thought of how I could do it.
Okay. So, last question. Have you ever done anything, started to do anything, or prepared to do anything to end your life?
So I'd say I've started kind of going on that path of eating myself to death. Eating poorly, lots of weight gain, not giving about what I'm putting in my body or what I'm doing to kind of try and counter that, I guess.
How about writing a note or preparation to die?
I mean, I don't, I live with my parents, so I don't really own a whole lot, but I've given things away. I've given my things away to my siblings, but I don't think a note would be worthwhile because it's not, it's short, I guess. The time it's going to take is short, and not to say I don't think people will care, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for your honesty and your openness. I'm going to go get a supervisor, but we're gonna help you. We're gonna get you the help that you need. So is it okay if I go and get a supervisor right now to help us out a little further?
Yes, thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. So in this scenario, there was definitely ideation. The intent, it was an unorthodox way of what we think about killing yourself, eating
and
yourself.
Suicide attempts in general.
Right.
Right. Slow, gradual, not sudden and quick and.
Mm-hmm. So I was having trouble with, she said how she would kill herself. So that would be question 3. And then we go to question 4 about, have you had these thoughts and some intentions of acting on them? And she kind of said that in question 3. So I was in between saying, should I skip that question? I didn't stick to the script there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, no, stick to the script. But I was listening and trying to make...
You're trying to make sense of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then 5 was, have you started to work out or worked out the details on how to kill yourself? And I would say yes. Do you intend to carry out this plan?
And I'd said I'd already started to.
Right. But really was the kicker was the behavior question. And what I was looking for, in this scenario was she already decided that she's going to kill herself. And that was with the note. But she mentioned selling off possessions, and that was it.
Yeah, getting rid of my possessions instead of doing a note, or, there was no object to kind of look for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little different approach.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a scenario with ideation, with intent, and the behavior kind of backed that up. So that's why that was really important.
Definitely.
So the last thing we're going to do is our game show. And that's going to see the definition of a suicide attempt is a self-injurious act committed with at least some intent to die, or as a result of the act. And even if that person started the attempt and then kind of said, oh, no.
Changed their mind.
Right, it's still an attempt. So we have some questions for you at home. And
for our viewers.
Yeah, so we're going to get to play a little game here. I'm going to cue up the music. And, go here because we have some music. But here's the first question. The first question is, the patient wanted to escape from her mother's home. She researched lethal doses of ibuprofen. She took 6 ibuprofen pills and said she felt, I can't read, it's blurry. She felt certain from her research that this amount was not enough to kill her. She stated she did not want to die, only to escape from her mother's home. She was taken to the emergency room where her stomach was pumped and she was admitted to a psychiatric ward. Is this a suicide attempt?
Or not?
Cue music, which isn't queuing up. Darn it. All right, so there we go.
There we go.
So what do you think, Kristen?
So the key details are in the client's story. She had researched the lethal dosage of ibuprofen, right? But it had only taken the dosage she felt was not lethal. So there's no intent behind this client's decision, therefore not making it a suicide attempt.
Right. She just wanted to escape her mother's house. Her mother was abusive, and she found a way to do that to get out of there. So that was not an attempt. These are actual true scenarios from a hospital. Second question. Young woman following a fight with her boyfriend felt like she wanted to die, impulsively took a kitchen knife and made a superficial scratch to her wrist. Before she actually punctured the skin or bled, however, she changed her mind and stopped. Suicide attempt?
Or not?
Talk amongst yourself.
Yeah.
Since you're probably by yourself.
Right.
What do you think?
So again, the key details are in the story, and what we talked about with suicide, it's the self-injurious act, right? So even though she changed her mind about death, she still took the knife and made a mark on her skin, even before it cut. Right. So I would say this is a suicide attempt.
It is a suicide attempt. We kind of talked about that a minute ago, about when that first pill, even though she's got 30 pills, but that first one that's swallowed, even though she's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that, right?
The intent is still there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go, patient was feeling ignored. She went into the family kitchen where her mother and sister were talking. She took a knife out of the drawer and made a cut on her arm. She denied that she wanted to die at all, not even a little, but just wanted them to pay attention to her. Suicide attempt?
Or not.
Really, we're trying to draw out a video to be 20 minutes, so we're almost there.
I know, we're good.
Well, what do you think?
So, again, there's some key elements in that scenario. For attention was the thing that caught my attention. And her intent was not to die. The intent's not there. It was not a suicide attempt.
Right. So it was not an attempt. And we're just going to go to the last one. All right. The patient cut her wrists after an argument with her boyfriend. Suicide attempt?
Or not.
Stop. What do you think?
So, I mean, all the other scenarios provided a lot of detail, right?
Correct.
This is one sentence. We don't know a lot, right? We don't know why the boyfriend and girlfriend were fighting. We don't know what thoughts or intent was going through her head when she decided to cut her wrists.
Right. So there's not enough information for that one.
Yeah. So we can't determine if it was a suicide attempt or not.
So I got another scenario for you, just thinking about that. So what if my 7-year-old son comes and tries to kill himself, right? He's had a bad day at school, and he wrote a note, and I read it, and it said he wanted to kill himself. So I bring him in to see you, and you sit him down, and he says, I wasn't thinking about killing myself, but I showed you the note. Would that be considered enough for a suicide attempt?
So we kind of talked about that in the previous scenario of me as the client giving up my possessions and the note kind of being the intent behind the suicide attempt. So I would say yes.
Even though the client said no,
yes,
the note dictated otherwise.
And it might not be in the current moment, but he was thinking of intent for death.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
All right. Thanks for watching the video.
Do your homework.